How much of your mental energy do you spend worrying about things you have no control over?
Whether it's someone else's mood, or your friend's choices, or even a mistake that you made last year, we spend so much of our mental energy focusing on things that are outside of our influence.
And research shows that people who focus their energy on things that they can't control have significantly higher levels of anxiety and stress.
Which is why in today's episode, we are unpacking the circle of control, which is a simple but really powerful framework that helps us to shift that worry and reframe our stress.
The content in this podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing we say should be taken as individualized advice. If anything you hear brings up concerns for you, we strongly encourage you to speak with your GP, psychologist, or another qualified health professional.
We would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their rich history and honour the ongoing connection to land, waters, culture, and community. Welcome to This Might Help, a podcast bridging the gap between evidence-based psychology research and your everyday life.
We're your hosts, Dr. Kira Hart.
And I'm Dr. Lauren Rossetti.
And today we're talking all about the locus of control and the visual representation of this, the circle of control. We'll be talking about what this visual representation diagram is, how it can impact our mental health, and some practical strategies to help us with those uncontrollable situations we find ourselves in.
Yeah. And the circle of control, I feel like, is not a super well-known, like, day-to-day thing.
No.
But it's so beneficial.
Exactly.
And so we'll get stuck into it.
Yes. Before we chat about today's research, let's begin with our wellbeing wins and wobbles. Lauren, please kick us off. What was your wellbeing win of the week?
I am going to share a communal wellbeing win from the both of us that we have both had recently, and that is that we finally had our graduation for our PhDs.
Yes, it was so good. So we submitted our PhDs a while ago.
Yeah.
But you don't graduate until, in my case, it was like a year afterwards.
Yeah.
But it takes a few months. And then we finally got to wear our fun hats.
Yeah.
And walk across stage and get our bit of paper.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy because you do this whole thing for like 4 years and it's all of this work. And then, like you said, you submit and then you're, for anyone that doesn't know this whole arduous process, that's also probably a little bit boring, but they send it off, it goes away. Like mine went overseas to 2 different places to be examined. And then you wait and then they give that back and then you have to submit the final thing and then you wait like a very long time for the final email that says you're officially have a PhD, officially Dr. Loz and Dr. Kira. And that takes such a long time. So it's kind of nice to have all of it like come to like an end or have that like final like bow on the top of the present, which is like, finishing the graduation and having it all come together.
Good on us, some smart girls who have finished their PhD.
Yes. And in our last episode about confidence, when I was looking at things, when we were kind of researching about that and looking at things that build confidence, one of them is celebrating your accomplishments and doing that actively. And so here we are practicing that.
Yep.
Just finally graduated.
Big celebration.
From our PhD. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's a wellbeing win I'm imparting on the both of us.
Yeah, love. I feel a bit awkward now going into the wellbeing wobbles, but life is all about balance and it's not always positives and celebrations.
Yeah.
Do you have a wellbeing wobble you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a kind of funny one that's calling myself out a bit. But I went to a dinner party recently and apologies to the friends that I went to this dinner party with, because I was going on the way, I was picking up some stuff, picking up some drinks and some other little things, and I bought a block of chocolate.
Yum. What type of chocolate?
It was like a Kit Kat block
Yum.
of chocolate. Yeah,
Okay.
delicious. And my well-being wobble is that I was not very sharing and caring in this because I bought the Kit Kat block and I thought, I desperately want to eat this later. And so I just kept it. It was just zipped up in my bag. And I was like, I'm so sorry to my friends. I can't share the chocolate. The chocolate was stayed in my little bag.
So you didn't bring it out at any
I didn't
point
bring it
to
out.
be like, oh, I've brought this for everyone.
No, I kept it. That's my well-being wobble.
I love
hoarded
that.
my chocolate for myself later. I mean, I did enjoy it, but I also suffered the consequences of then like feeling like
a bit sick after
eating
block.
a whole block of Kit Kat chocolate later. To be
Yep.
fair, I did bring I brought all other things to the dinner. You know, I rocked up with like drinks and other things to share.
You should have led with that. Here I am thinking you rocked up empty-handed or like with a block of chocolate hidden that you're like, no, I'm not sharing.
But I just felt like, because I brought other things to the dinner party, but I still could feel, you know, I was like, I do have this chocolate in my bag. And no part of me wanted to let them know that it was there to share because I thought I really want to eat this later.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's, yeah.
No, I like
I'm
that.
calling myself out.
It's a bit cheeky.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes we need to really be honest about what we do. This is kind of like you last week, though, eating your Milo things in front of me
Milo nuggets.
and not offering me one.
And I'm so sorry I haven't brought you any today either.
That's fine.
They're good.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we just keep things for ourselves. But well-being wobble in that I really probably should have shared.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
My wellbeing win, I'd say the same. Graduation was so fun. Shout out to my mum who bought me a really cute graduation teddy bear, and it's like got the PhD gown and hat.
Cute.
So that was a really sweet gift.
Love that.
And then my wellbeing wobble, I feel like this week I've just been overthinking things a lot and I've been in my head a lot. And I wouldn't say I've had a full spiral, but I've gotten close to it. And I feel like you have been on the receiving end of some of these text messages, but there have definitely been a few days where my head's kind of just like really overthought things, or kind of things from the past have been brought up and I've like had trouble kind of, you know, staying a bit more balanced on top of things. But it's been good to chat through things with yourself and some others. And I'm feeling better now, but that was the wellbeing wobble.
Yeah. You're like going down the slide, but you've not spiraled all the way down. Yeah. You're like holding on to the rails and you're not letting yourself go further. Yeah. Climbing back up.
Yes.
Well, that's good. You've reframed.
Yes.
You've reframed.
Yes. I was able to stop myself and be like, okay, something needs to change.
Yeah. I feel like our topic today can kind of help with a spiraling mind frame. So this is good. This is timely.
Yeah.
So Kira, tell me what is the locus of control? Because I think for a lot of people that term won't have a lot of meaning behind it.
It may not be familiar, but the locus of control is essentially a psychological concept that describes when we believe that the power of our life either resides within ourselves, so internally, or is brought about by external forces. So whether the power of our lives is external.
Yeah.
An internal locus refers to the belief that outcomes are shaped by one's own actions, whereas an external locus, we attribute outcomes in our lives to factors such as luck or fate or powerful influences. So the idea of locus of control dates back to the 1950s and 60s, and a researcher, Rotter, who kind of like described social learning theory. In simple terms, the social learning theory is where we learn that our actions connect to outcomes, and this helps build our expectations about kind of what we can control next and what we can control in our future. So that's what we're chatting about today, the locus of control, and more specifically, the circle of control.
Yeah.
So this is a practical framework or visualization that demonstrates the concept behind the locus of control. So whether we have or believe the power of our lives resides within ourselves or external factors. The circle of control gets brought up a bit if you are a psychologist. So when you're kind of practicing as a psychologist, it's a theory that I'm constantly going back to, or a visualization, a diagram that I'm constantly going back to. And although it's probably not that commonly discussed in like pop psychology or
just like day-to-day life.
Life, it's something that psychologists kind of constantly draw on. So we thought it'd be really helpful to do an episode on this and kind of just like unpack the visual diagram of the circle of control.
So the diagram of the circle of control is usually shown as these 3 concentric circles. So circles within circles. So each kind of representing a different level of influence. So like little circle, slightly bigger circle, and then a bigger circle around that.
I just want to jump in and say some people conceptualize or visualize the circle of control as 2 circles. For example, I have a poster of this in my counselling room and in my rooms, and I'm constantly kind of drawing on the 2 circles. But for this episode, we'll be conceptualizing it as the 3 circles, which is consistent with Stephen Covey's book from the 80s.
Yeah, nice. And so 3 circles, little one, slightly bigger bigger one. This innermost circle, like the smallest one in the middle, like the bullseye.
The bullseye, exactly. That's a great, actually, analogy. If you're listening along, you haven't gone back to the YouTube or the Instagram to see the visualization yet, a bullseye is a perfect way to picture it.
Yeah. So the tiny circle in the middle, the innermost circle, that is our circle of control.
Yes.
And this is where you have direct power. So this is where kind of putting energy into this circle of control, this smallest circle, leads to the greatest impact and builds like resilience and confidence and agency. So it's what you have control over.
Yes, and that includes things such as our choices, our actions and behaviors, our effort, our attitude, and how we respond to situations. So, for example, you have a stressful situation coming up. Maybe you're applying for a new job and you have to go for an interview. If we consider the circle of control and how that can help our mental health and help with our stress levels, the innermost circle, the circle of control, we can control the effort we put in to practicing for the interview. We can control our resume and our cover letter and how we tailor it for the specific job. And we can control our nerves before going into the interview. Maybe we practice like a mindful exercise, or we do some deep breathing or positive self-talk before we go into that interview to help calm our nerves. So that innermost circle is things that we're fully in control of and things that we can directly affect.
Yeah. I also think of even in like conflict with, say, friends or family members, like if you think about what, you know, let's say something's happened and then you're reflecting on it after, like you don't have control over what the other person, so much, like what the other person is thinking or feeling about that, but you have control over like what you do in response to that situation.
Like,
so, like
what you say. If you yell at them and swear at them, or if you speak kindly to them and apologize or make amends.
Yeah, exactly. There then is this middle circle. So one slightly bigger, but the next circle out is the circle of influence. And so these are things that you can affect, but you can't fully control these areas. So for example, you can influence a friend's well-being by being like supportive or being there for them, but you can't force them to make a certain choice or to like change an action. Yeah.
Exactly. So this kind of middle circle, the circle of influence, includes things such as friendships and relationships where we can encourage and influence, but we can't control others.
Yeah.
Also things like team dynamics or workplace or community processes. We might have some say and we might be able to contribute, but we can't dictate and directly control the outcome. So going back to the job example, we can, things that would fall within this middle circle, the circle of influence, we can influence the impression we have on the interviewer by being professional, by being enthusiastic about the job, but we can't completely control what the interviewer thinks of us and how they perceive us.
Yeah.
We can sway things in your favor by doing things, but you don't have complete control.
Yeah. Then there is the outer circle. So the
Yes.
biggest circle
Yes.
in our little diagram, which is the circle of concern.
Yes.
And this is where, I guess, within this circle, you can care about and like deeply feel for the things within this circle, but you can't control them directly. And so this is where I guess we see that worry or the worrying within the circle of concern can really drain a lot of our energy without necessarily creating a lot of change because we don't have control over the outcomes in this circle of concern.
Yes.
So this could include things like you've kind of touched on, other people's choices and feelings. It could be things like the past that we can't control or change, but then it can also be kind of bigger factors that are outside of our control. So more kind of global events or things like politics or climate change, like wars or the economy, a lot of stuff that's really like deeply impacting us and a lot of people at the moment as well, where those things are, do feel very much outside of our control and they're within that circle of concern, and there can be a lot of worry and stress and rumination about those things, which can drain and really take away a lot of our mental energy.
Yeah, it's a really tricky area because no matter how much you stress about the things within the circle of concern, they're out of your hands and you don't have direct control over them, which can be really hard to sit with that inability to control an outcome.
Yeah.
For example, if we're drawing on like a job application, things that might be in that outer circle, things that you can't control, could be who else applied for the job, and being able to sit there and accept that no matter how great your application is, you don't have any control over who else applies and how much experience they have and their skill sets and how they interview. Or we don't have any control over if the company suddenly has a hiring freeze or the budget of the company and how much they're kind of willing to take on new employees, or the final hiring decision. You can do things to, as we say, influence in that middle circle, but this outer circle is really speaking to, at the end of the day, there's always going to be factors that are completely out of our control, and being able to accept that.
And knowing that a lot of the worry and focus and energy that can exist within that outer circle that we can't control can be really tricky. Like that's a lot of stress. They say like worry can be like suffering twice, right?
Yes.
Like if you're worrying about something and it's out of your control, you're both experiencing that really like horrible feeling in the moment, and then you go and do you're kind of like costing yourself that mental energy twice.
Yes.
I think it's also helpful here when we think about those three circles then. So like our circle of control, our circle of influence, and then this circle of concern. It doesn't mean like, even though there are things that are outside of our control, for example, like climate change or like these bigger global issues, it doesn't mean like, okay, I don't have direct influence over the outcome of this thing and so I do nothing, or like I can't do anything, or that feeling of real helplessness. I think it's more highlighting that when we control or contribute to factors that are in our circle of control and our circle of influence, that we can then feel more like we have more agency or control or influence over those things as well. Like it's, I guess, then focusing back on or shifting or reframing, which, sorry, I'm kind of like jumping ahead to some of our strategies, but reframing back to those things within the center so that we can feel we are doing some things that are within our control.
Exactly.
And within that circle of influence.
Yes. And acknowledging that there are things outside of our control, but there are also things that we do have control over and things that we can influence.
Yes.
And Stephen Covey's theory is that we want to focus our energy on those innermost circles, the things that we can impact, rather than the broader circle, the circle of concern, and worrying about things that we can't change or we don't have influence over.
Yeah.
And that's similar in psychology. We want to focus on things that we can control and accept that there will be things that are out of our control as well.
Yeah. And that can all exist within the same scenario or concept, like, you know, within everything that we're talking about, whether it is going for a job, whether it is conflict, whether with a friend, whether it is climate.
Yes.
There are parts of that like concern or issue or situation that exist across all three of those circles.
Yes.
And like bringing us back to those true innermost circles, and then allowing our brain to kind of step away from the outermost circle. So I guess all together, that kind of diagram then, that this circle of control is a real visual reminder of this. And I find, sorry, it's like
had a little hiccup.
Yeah. Don't mind me. I find these visual reminders and like structured ways to look at things like this really helpful, because I think in our minds and like day to day, you can forget, it's like something that just passes over our brain or we forget. I find even just seeing this circle, like having it somewhere where
having
I see
a
it,
poster of it on your wall.
Yeah. Or if you don't work in a psychology office, maybe it's not on your...
You could put it in your bedroom, or I don't know.
Yeah. Even like, you know, on your phone, on the background, like a little post-it note on our laptops or something. But like having that somewhere is a real visual reminder that we can spend less energy on this outer circle, so the circle of concern, and invest more of our energy on the inner circle, the bullseye, our circle of control, and then be able to use the middle circle or the circle of influence kind of wisely. So you can't guarantee the outcomes of that circle of influence, but your efforts may shift things more positively in your favor. I really think to that circle of influence in like my work, in more my research role, where there's a lot of grant applications and there's a lot of like things where you're kind of continually going for different roles within your job, like, you know, going up to be involved in another paper or a project or something. And there's lots of times where I guess I can contribute to that middle circle or the circle of influence. So I might be networking with those people in advance, or I might be, you know, I might know like that there's something that I can really contribute to that project, and that helps. But I think investing wisely in the circle of influence is also important, because I could do all of those things and they do contribute somewhat to influencing the outcomes, but they don't guarantee those outcomes completely. And so it's like wisely using my time and energy within the circle of influence so that I don't spend like an endless amount of time doing stuff that then burns me out.
Yes, exactly. I also think the circle of control can be a really like hot take when it comes to like relationships, both friendships and dating. And when you kind of are stressed about, oh, what are other people thinking or feeling? Going back to, okay, what can I control? You can control how you interact with people, if you send them a text, if you're polite and kind to them. But at the end of the day, when we go to those broader circles, we can't control other people's opinions, and we
Yeah.
can't control what other people say and what other people think.
Yeah.
So just like if you're ever kind of stressing about whether someone else likes you or dislikes you, going back to the circle of control and being like, you know what? I can control what I can control, and there's all these other uncontrollables that are out of my hands.
Yeah. I think when I am in social situations, especially if I've been at like an event or something with lots of people,
Yeah.
and particularly when there's new friends or even when they're friends from like even like a work, I know them through some other people, but they're not like super close group of friends. I will often leave those scenarios and ruminate over like what they have thought of different specific things that I've said or done, right? Like I might go away and be like, oh, was I like talking too much? Was I saying X, Y, Z? Was I blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
Like on and on, right? And that's such a circle of concern, an out of circle problem that is so unhelpful because I can't control how they, you know, perceived me or any of those things. And it's also in the past.
Yes.
But like I feel like I can find myself wasting a lot of time in that kind of, in those social contexts, like ruminating or worrying about those things. But that's completely out of my control.
Yeah. And there's that quote that you can be the juiciest peach, but there will still be someone who doesn't like peaches.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't control if someone just like fundamentally has different values to you or, you know, has completely different beliefs or thoughts that don't align with you.
Yeah.
But you can control, you know, being nice and being friendly.
Yeah. And the element of like even within relationships and dating is such a big one too. It's like, you know, you can't control if someone is just never going to message back.
Yeah.
Like you can't force that. You can influence it maybe, but yeah, it's like that worry or rumination about what they think or what's going to happen is outside of your control.
Exactly. So there's so many different examples in life where the circle of control and the locus of control come into play.
Yeah.
How does the circle of control, or why does it matter for mental health and stress levels?
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on a bit of that and like how it's, especially in relation to stress and how it impacts kind of stress and worry. But in the research as well, that shows that focusing on controllable factors, so the things that we can control, is linked to greater psychological resilience and reduced stress. So when we do bring ourselves back more into that circle of control or that centermost circle, then we are more likely to reduce our level of stress.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of research that shows individuals who have that focus on that inner circle, they believe they can influence outcomes through actions such as planning or problem solving and putting in effort. And in stressful contexts, they use problem-focused coping strategies such as taking action steps or seeking solutions, asking for help. And overall, in the research, they experience less emotional distress because they don't have that hopelessness feeling. They're very much concerned on, okay, what can I do about the situation? In contrast with people who have an external locus of control, believing that outcomes in life depend on luck or fate or external influences, these people were found to have more avoidant coping strategies. So they might more likely to be in denial or withdraw from a situation, rather than take action steps. And this, when we kind of withdraw or are in denial, that's reported to be associated with higher stress levels.
Yeah. And if you think about it practically too, if you think that, like if any of us think that the outcome of everything or the way that things are going to go or how things are is just all of the responsibility of others around us, or it's all influenced just by everything occurring in the world and I don't have autonomy or responsibility or control or influence over what happens within my life,
Yes.
then that is distressing if you feel completely like you don't have control over anything.
Yeah.
And so when we bring things back into that circle where we do have control, then the fact that that reduces stress and is also shown in the research, I think makes sense, which is good.
I love when the research just like completely aligns with like your personal experience and you can be like, yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like that's what we experience day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like why we're here.
Why we're doing this podcast.
So across contexts, so like work or personal contexts as well, an internal locus has been associated with lower depression and anxiety and higher resilience and self-esteem. So it's, I guess, having a locus of control, that internal locus of control can function as a psychological buffer. So helps people manage their uncertainty and stress more effectively.
Yes.
This, I think, speaks to the fact that it's kind of a strategy of reframing, right?
Yes.
Like where it's not that there aren't things, it's very much that there are things that we can't control, but it's the ability to then reframe and redirect our mental energy, our physical energy, our focus on the controllable factors.
Yeah. So when you're faced with that stressful situation, going back to that innermost circle, the circle of control, and looking at, okay, what can I influence? And that kind of avoids that sense of helplessness and gives you that sense of autonomy and hope that you can take action.
Yes. And so let's then go straight into the practical ways we can use that from the research.
I love this because during this conversation, I feel like we've already been alluding to some of the tips and strategies.
Yes.
But the first strategy we want to talk to, and I'm sorry, as I'm speaking, I'm losing my voice. I've had the well-being wobble the last few weeks that I'm sick, and apparently I still am. The first strategy we want to talk about is sorting your stresses into the circles.
Yeah.
So maybe it's helpful to get the visual diagram up of the circle of control, or you could draw a diagram yourself and break down something that's stressing you out. So think about the innermost circle of control. Can I directly do something about this? Then the second broader circle, the circle of influence. How can I influence this stressor, even indirectly? And then going broader to that circle of concern. Is this stressor completely out of my hands?
Yeah.
So drawing those circles down and writing out your stresses and kind of linking it to the different elements of the circle could be helpful.
Yeah. I really love drawing these things out. I think I've done it a bit more as well with things from the happiness trap. So when we were talking about ACT therapy in an earlier episode and kind of going through, when we were talking about like the towards moves and away moves, go back and listen to our values episode if you want to know what that is. But physically writing it out, I love. And I think conceptualizing this stuff on paper, like a worry or even just, a whole lot of things, you could do it about one particular scenario or about many things that you are currently concerned about.
Yes.
But seeing that visually and being able to see then the things that are in that circle of control and that circle of influence really helps your brain to like see it physically and then take in that reframe.
Yes.
Yeah. I love a drawing of it.
Being able to map it out.
Yes, exactly. And when faced with a stressful situation, you can then also, I guess, use this concept of the circle of control to ask yourself these questions. One of them is, what part of this situation can I do something about? Yeah. So like that's linking us back to the circle of control. And then what's outside of my control that I can practice letting go of? So what is it that is within that circle of concern that I can really practice letting go and parting from?
Yeah.
But what is something that I can do in my circle of control.
Love that.
And this shifts us from the kind of thinking of like, why is this happening? Why kind of is this happening to me? Or, you know, that ruminating type of thought to the kind of what now? Like, what can I do thinking? And so instead of ruminating on like why something bad has happened, which focuses on the uncontrollable things, it's reframing to like, what's the next small step that I can take here? Like, what's one small thing that I could do now to kind of control this situation?
For example, let's say you've had a fight with a friend and that fight is in the past. So that's in the outermost circle, the circle of concern. We can't change that.
Yeah.
But what are some small steps you can take, or what's within that circle of control that you can take to amend the friendship?
Yeah.
And maybe you could give them a phone call, buy them flowers, apologize, or kind of whatever needs to happen in that situation.
Yeah.
Focusing on, okay, this has happened, what now?
Yeah. And that leads us into letting go, which is
our next strategy, letting go. Easier said than done, I think.
Much. Yeah.
I feel like when I've had like difficulties and I'm ruminating on something, my mum always sings the Frozen song, Let It Go.
Do you want to keep singing?
No, I don't.
Yeah, just so I can clip that later and put it in something.
But it is, something people always say, like you've had something bad happen to you or something's gone wrong, and then people kind of, ask you or remind you, you need to let that go. And you're like, shut up. I'm really annoyed by it. I can't let it go. It's not that easy. But there are kind of different psychological strategies and techniques that can help with that acceptance of those difficult things or hurtful things that have happened, such as journaling about uncontrollable or hurtful events can be helpful to, write out and express your emotion, express your hurt, which can help let it go.
Yeah.
There's also that classic worry time technique where you set aside 15 minutes or 10 minutes a day to worry. Have you heard about this?
I have heard about it. I haven't.
Do you not like it? Yeah.
No, I think, I'm like 10 minutes a day. Like, that's, I mean, if you're, I think I worry a lot, and I wonder, I think it's a good thing to try. I wonder, as someone who does spend a lot of time stressed and a lot of time worrying, whether like the blocked out time for me would necessarily limit the other time that I spend worrying in the day. I think like things kind of trigger that worry and it happens automatically. But I do, and this just adds on to what we always talk about, which is that every strategy works differently for every person.
Exactly.
For me, I think unloading things through like journaling or spending time where I'm like training my brain to be comfortable with letting thoughts pass, like with being mindful, that's effective, like for my type of worry.
Yes.
But for other people, giving yourself a boundary of like, I get this time to worry and then it's gone. Like, go away. Go away, worries. Will be helpful for people, particularly if you really like those types of boundary, like rule-based things.
So for anyone who's unfamiliar with the worry time technique, essentially it's you're having lots of worried thoughts. Maybe you're worried about a job application. And instead of kind of worrying about it all day or having those ruminating thoughts throughout the day, you say, okay, for 15 minutes from 6 p.m. to 6:15, I'm going to allocate that as my worry time. So that's kind of like the aim or the focus of the worry time technique. But as we said, may or may not work for different individuals.
Do you like that? Do you do it?
I never do it, no. I'm like you. I'm like, if I'm worrying about something, I'm worrying about it in the moment. I'm not putting it into my calendar to be like, okay, worry about it at 6 p.m. It doesn't work for me.
I think for chronic things, like big picture things that are going on for a long time, I can see it being helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, especially if it's like, I've got this time, and then you probably almost let your brain run through that thing to like a point where you've worked out something that you're going to do with it
Yes.
or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes. So different strategies,
Yes.
different things.
There's also a lot of like mindfulness and meditation strategies to practice acceptance, as well as different therapies. Like acceptance and commitment therapy is very much centered around accepting things and letting go of the uncontrollable.
Yeah. And when you're mindful and then aware, it allows you to identify that thought
Yeah.
and then put it in even the context of these circles. So like, I'm really worried, let's say like one of the job things like a grant that I've put in, okay, I can be really worried about whether I'm going to get that or not, like whether I'll be successful in getting it. But when that thought comes in, by practicing mindfulness, you're then better able to like consciously think about that thought and say, okay, this is a circle of concern and I'm going to let it go.
Yes.
Like you're more able to stop the thoughts in the moment and redirect them.
Yeah.
When you're mindful and like consciously aware of what's coming in. So this is essentially what I just said in kind of redirecting our attention, but it's like each time you catch yourself stressing about something that is uncontrollable, you can redirect to a more controllable action. So instead of like, I guess being stuck in a cycle of even, consuming content or things related to what you're worried about, you could then reframe that to action. So if we're thinking about something like climate change, sometimes it's easy to get stuck in a cycle of like doom scrolling on like climate related content or things about that concern. But if we know that that type of worry is within our circle of concern, we can commit or redirect that energy into our circles of influence and circle of control.
Yes.
So it might be that we're committing to recycling or consuming less products that contribute to climate change as well, like things like sustainable clothing or other practices. So it's not eliminating this this concept altogether. It's not that, okay, I'm just going to stop worrying about climate change. It's just I'm going to redirect the circle of concern, worry that I don't have control over, and I'm going to reframe that into actions I can take that contribute to the thing that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the climate change example, global CO2 emissions, we cannot control. Like that is in the circle of concern. That's out of our control. But we can directly control, like how much we consume and our own emissions. And then within the circle of influence, we can protest and we can do certain things to kind of have a bit of an influence. But there is kind of that more broad circle of concern where there is a lot of things out of our control.
Yeah. And we're not saying, I guess, that we can't sit in these feelings or feel the feelings, like feel the worry, feel the stress. And we don't always have to be solution oriented. So it's not like, now I have to start acting on all of these things. It's, I guess, helping us work out that we might have all of these worries, or we might be experiencing a lot of the worries in the day, and we might be spending so much of our time worried and focused on things that we can't control and things that we can't necessarily influence or take action on. And so this is just a way and a concept to really reduce that so that we can spend less time in that worry and distress.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is something I would like to. What are you going to focus on, Kira? Do you have anything that you think's been in your circle of concern, worry that you're going to reframe with this? No? That's okay. You don't have to have one. I can speak to the fact. I think I have a lot of, I think even as clinicians, and if people work with other people, even in friendships, this can happen, where I might really worry about how information is going to be perceived by someone else, or their reaction and their response and the way that I'm coming across, which I can't control. And so I am going to be envisioning these scenarios within my circle of control and focus on like what I can bring to those situations is I can bring my knowledge, I can bring my, you know, clinical skills, I can bring like my effort and my real like concern and commitment.
Yeah.
And I can bring those things to the scenario, but I can't control how other people will then perceive me or respond.
Yes, exactly. You can't control how they'll react, but you can control how you approach the situation.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, that's everything for our episode. We've spoken lots about the circle of control and the locus of control as well. And so, like you said, Kira will put a visual of the circle of control on our socials.
Yeah.
And we will link all of the relevant stuff in our show notes as usual. And I would encourage ourselves and everyone
and the listeners
to draw out a circle of control. Have a go.
Yes, love that.
So as always, you can message us on all of our socials. So Instagram, TikTok, the full video version is also on YouTube as always.
As always as well. If you need any further support, please get in touch with a healthcare professional, and further helplines are always provided in the show notes.
And we will catch you in the next episode.
Amazing.
Bye.